Vince Costello, the International Services Department.
My name is Lynn Wetz, and I've been volunteering since Hurricane Katrina.
Lindsay Moore.
My name is Cliff Schisler.
The reason I got involved with the American Red Cross originally was kind of by chance. I was a senior in college at Xavier, and I had a professor that offered her students an opportunity for an exposure to a social service agency in Cincinnati. And I had a light load, and I thought this would be kind of a nice thing to kind of just do, keep myself occupied.
A niche that I found that it puts all my passions together, it's a world that I never knew existed, and a world that I never knew I always wanted to be a part of.
I originally became a volunteer because I was watching the coverage of Hurricane Katrina every day and just being upset about it and felt like I needed to do something. So after 6 days, I called the local chapter and volunteered, and they trained a whole lot of us very quickly and sent us to Baton Rouge.
It's probably a story that a lot of people tell, and that is after Katrina, people wondering how they could help. After Katrina, shortly after Katrina, I went down to New Orleans twice with groups to observe and to help rebuild, especially in the 8th Ward.
I got the call, I believe, on a Monday. I can't recall exactly because I watched the storm like most of us watched the storm over the weekend because it started to hit Friday evening. When I got the call, they weren't even sure whether they were going to get us out right away because at that point, all the airports into the New York, New Jersey area were shut down.
It is a weird situation knowing that you're going to jump into a truck with a perfect stranger and go on a road trip. I have trust in Red Cross volunteers. I've done it before. I had another gentleman who was my partner when we went to Columbus for the power outage. You go in with an open mind and a trusting heart and hope everything works out. One of the first things I do is call my husband or text him and I say, I have a good Irv husband. And then he doesn't have to worry because it's a partnership. It's a commitment to each other. It's like having your spouse in the truck because you're together 16 hours a day.
The story is always the same. Last minute, I had volunteered to drive one of the emergency response vehicles in Irv. If necessary, I was told, don't worry about it. We've already got 2 people from Cincinnati that are signed up to do it. I said, that's great. And then on Saturday, about 2:30 or 3 o'clock, they called and said, can you go? And I said, let me check. It's always one of those, check with your wife, check the schedule, make sure you can be gone for 2 weeks. That's a big chunk of time. And I said, yeah. They said, can you go in 2 hours? I said, no. How about 2.5 hours? It just, doesn't work. And they said, that'll be fine. And oh, by the way, you'll have to drive to Dayton and pick up the partner that's going with you, Lynn. I said, that's fine. The process always is you pick up your bag with your toothbrush and comb and brush and stuff like that, and you pick up your clothes that you think you might need, and you're never sure, of course, what you're going to need. It could be cold, it could be warm, it could be both of those things. And finally, a sleeping bag, because you know that probably sometime in the trip you're going to be sleeping on a cot in a gym somewhere, and it's nice to have your own personal sleeping bag.
In the American Red Cross, when there is a national disaster, there are different categories and subcategories. I was in mass care and sheltering. So that means I work at the client shelters, which are usually high schools or churches or hospitals. We take care of the clients. We provide food, mental health, and any moral support that they might need. Running the shelter, pretty much. So.
Can you tell me about your shelter?
I was in 2. I started out in Manhattan at a homeless shelter. City of New York has over 100 homeless shelters, and they too were greatly affected. So this was a high school that was turned into a place to bring the people from a homeless shelter. And then I went to Staten Island, and I was there most of my time. I was working at a hospital, Bailey Seton Hospital on Staten Island.